Woohoo!
So last week we started a new series on political philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided we were going to evaluate political positions and values through the lens of what I think you kind of felt was a universal political value, that of freedom.
Yep.
So this week we're going to actually jump into some contemporary political issues and try to unpack where the disagreement in humanity on these issues stems from. Is it a matter of values, or is it a matter of something else? Make sense?
Yeah.
Let's start with the granddaddy of them all. The ultimate political debate in America. Abortion.
Yeah. Starting with the big thing right away.
Yeah, right? Let's just jump into it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe for me the liberal position on abortion through the lens of the value of freedom?
Yeah. The liberal position is very much all about freedom and about the freedom of choice and the freedom to have control over your own body and what you choose to do with that. And the position is quite literally called pro-choice, like the freedom to choose to make your own decisions. And it kind of is very freedom-oriented in that way.
Right, so very straightforwardly so in that particular case. So can you describe the conservative position on abortion through the lens of freedom?
Yeah. See, while conservatives do not appear to be particularly aimed towards freedom in this case, they actually are, like, sort of using their own brand and form of freedom. And that freedom is not the right to choose, the right to be free with your choices and decisions. It's the freedom for the baby inside to live.
It seems like it's a little bit of a stretch that you're making there in terms of couching that side in the context of freedom. It doesn't seem as natural of a fit.
Yeah, I think that generally any position can really be stretched in some way, unless it's excessively anti-freedom in like some sort of clear and obvious way. Any position can be argued for freedom, but for some positions, it's a little bit more obvious that it is, in actuality, completely for freedom, while for others, there might be other priorities.
And we described this in when we were discussing murder.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I want to go murder people, right, it's like, it's not fair to restrict my freedom, right, if I want to go murder people. But you ultimately argued that my freedom would conflict with their freedom, right? Their rights to live and to pursue happiness and everything else.
And then it would also conflict with their safety.
Right, exactly. Well, so, and I think that I think the conservative argument is similar.
Yeah.
Right? In that they would argue that your freedom to have that choice about your body just doesn't involve your body. It involves someone else's body, namely the unborn child.
Yes.
This is an argument that has been prevalent in American politics for at least 50 years at the forefront.
Yeah.
Do you think that liberals and conservatives disagree about abortion because they don't have the same values?
No. I don't think so.
Right? So you would say that both conservatives and liberals value freedom.
Yes.
Pretty clearly, right? On a lot
Obviously.
of positions. And I think that both conservatives and liberals would agree that sometimes you have to curtail your personal freedom if it impinges on the rights of another person to have freedom as well.
Yes.
Right? So there is no conflict of values.
No.
It's crazy, right? Like, it feels like it, though, sometimes.
It really does.
If it's not a conflict of values, where does the conflict come from?
I'm not going to pretend that I have any sort of expertise over this position at all, but I think that maybe, well, they still value the same fundamental things. Those things, those values can mean very different things for different people.
Okay, well, so let's just stop right there, right? Because that's a possibility. But let's really analyze if that's the issue. Like if they're using those values differently. So I would say that the right to choose whether to have an abortion or not is very similar to the sort of freedom that conservatives talk about when they talk about gun rights.
Yeah.
Right? So in that sense, I would say that they both value the exact same kind of freedom. That it's not a different kind of freedom.
Yeah.
Right?
I actually find it really interesting when comparing the issue of abortion and gun rights. How, like, my own personal opinions, they seem to, like, conflict with, like, whether or not I value freedom or safety in a particular point. So it's like I sort of understand it, but still just seeing it from an objective perspective, it's really weird to see how it can just be so completely flipped on its head whether you value freedom or safety on any particular moment.
Well, right. And so the value of safety or protection or whatever that other value might be, right? I see it being applied the same way between liberals and conservatives, just on the opposite side of those two issues, right? Yeah. They're both trying to protect children in their minds.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's like unborn children versus born children.
I think freedom means freedom to liberals and conservatives, and safety or protecting the children means the same thing for both of them.
Yeah.
If that's not the conflict, where is that conflict coming from?
Well, I think what I'm about to say might be pretty biased. I'm just going to say both groups of people value freedom and safety, but in some cases, one side might value specific people's freedom and safety over other people's freedom and safety.
You're saying that possibly the conflict is that neither group is applying the values of freedom and safety universally to people, and are actually only valuing a certain subset of people.
Yeah.
So let me challenge that insofar as what we just said before. I feel like on the safety side, both of them are literally talking about the safety of children. And I think that both of them really value their own freedom, right, as it applies to themselves. They want to be able to do what they want to do. And they think that every human being should be able to do that. It's not a stated position, right? That conservatives just believe that conservatives should get to own guns.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think that liberals would say that only liberals get to have abortions. Both groups believe that both laws or both values apply to everyone equally.
Yeah. But also, I think that a distinction can be made in that liberals might value the lives of school-aged children, like already out there, over the lives of unborn children. Well, for conservatives, it would be the opposite.
Now, I think we're getting at something a little closer to the truth. I think that we're agreed that conservatives don't find it okay to kill school-aged children, but not okay to kill unborn children.
Yeah.
But I do think, actually, on the liberal side, you could make that argument.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so I think they both agree, at least on a value perspective, that school-aged children should be protected to some degree. Like, they both believe that school-aged children have rights.
Yes.
But there is a conflict between unborn children. One side says that unborn children have rights. One side says unborn children have no rights. I mean, literally, nothing.
No rights.
Right? Because murder is like about as,
Zero rights.
Zero rights. So where's that come from?
What's subjective is not whether or not children deserve to live. It's whether or not unborn children are alive at all and should be treated as such.
Bingo. So one group believes that unborn children are children.
Yes.
And one group believes that unborn, and I keep saying unborn children, that's kind of prejudicial, right?
That they're fetuses.
That they're fetuses. So now we're getting at the root of this. In the largest political disagreement in America, you could say, abortion, liberals and conservatives don't have a conflict of values.
No.
They have a conflict of facts, of beliefs. Literally. One of them believes that unborn children are children, and one believes that they're just fetuses, that they aren't alive. Where does that disagreement about where life begins come from for those two groups?
There are so many people on either side that all would say different things about why they believe this specific thing. But I think that one general thing you could say is that conservatives' beliefs might be influenced by religion, while liberals' beliefs might be influenced by science.
Bingo. Now I think you're getting at the heart of the conflict. I think it would probably be fair to say that most people, conservatives, who hold an anti-abortion view, their view of where life begins is informed by religious doctrine.
Yeah.
Whereas most liberals who do not believe that an unborn child is a child at all would base their views of what a child is and what a child is not more on science.
Yes.
So, for instance, if science were able to, like, put up a sonogram into the woman's belly, right?
Yeah.
And you heard the little baby going, "Hey, what's going on in here, guys? When am I getting out?" Right?
I don't think there'd be much of a disagreement.
Right? I think that liberals would probably be like, I think we gotta, like, work on this a little bit.
I think abortion is wrong.
I think we maybe gotta, like, curtail this a little bit, right? Yeah. We do put a sonogram up to a woman's belly, and, at least for the first few weeks, maybe the first couple months, it's kind of the same thing. It kind of looks the same as, like, I don't know, like an elephant's fetus, or a dog fetus, or it just looks like a bunch of cells that don't really, aren't very baby-like, aren't very person-like.
Honestly, for most of the pregnancy, it kind of looks like a little baby hairless rat.
I would disagree with you, and I'm not an OBGYN, right? But I do think that, within a few months, it looks like a baby. I mean, I remember, right? I had this done, right? Like, we can tell whether it's a boy or a girl. It's got all its arms, it's got fingers, it's got a little face.
But also it's still pretty ugly.
Yeah, pretty ugly. But, you should have seen when you came out.
That's kind of my point. Babies are ugly.
Yeah, babies are ugly all the way. Maybe we should draw the line there, right? Like, while babies are still in the ugly phase, like, even if they come out, like, if you're kind of like, I don't think so. So, I think we got down to the fundamental conflict between liberals and conservatives on this, and that is they disagree when life begins.
Yes.
And we think that disagreement comes, at least to some degree, or at least in most cases, from one side basing where they think life begins from science, and the other side basing where they think life begins on religious texts.
Yeah.
Note where we're back to, again.
Science versus religion.
Well, and where did we start this whole philosophical discussion or study with? What study of philosophy did we start with?
Study of beliefs.
The study of beliefs, which is called?
Epistemology, or whatever.
Epistemology. So, I think that, in describing and getting into a political discussion like this, you begin to understand why I started with epistemology. Because in this particular political disagreement, it's not a conflict of values.
No.
It's a conflict of beliefs.
Isn't it always?
Well, but I don't think that most people would feel that way necessarily. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's important for us to understand as human beings. I think it's important for us to understand as political people that epistemology isn't important because everyone wants to be a giant nerd and be right all the time. It's important because epistemology has political ramifications.
Yeah.
And if we don't believe in the same way, if we don't share our beliefs about what the universe is, you can't solve these questions.
Nope.
You can't solve them. There's
Not
just
at all.
a perpetual, forever conflict.
Yeah. We hope that you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please consider checking out the next one in the series.
Or some of our other series on philosophy and life.
We upload videos every Friday, so don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. See you next week.